Welcome to Tales from the Switch Roll, where I, Jim, look back at some of the weird and wonderful games from the Nintendo Switch. This time, I explore my way across The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. Released back in September 2019, it was the first top-down Zelda game in 6 years. A remake of the Game Boy title from 1993, developed by Japanese studio Grezzo. This was the first Zelda game to follow up the massive Breath of the Wild, but contains the traditional top-down perspective and smaller world. Prior to Game Boy being added to Nintendo Switch Online, the original title was not the easiest to play as it required an older console. Link's Awakening has the classic Zelda formula, mixing exploration, combat and puzzles around a vibrant world. Starting out weaponless, the player must speak to NPCs for clues and gather key items to open up the world. This is the core of the game and it stands up impeccably well from its limited Game Boy roots. Combat kicks off with you slashing your sword at enemies and progresses as you find new weapons. It works well. There's a fair amount to collect around the map alongside the key items for exploration. These are found in the dungeons. They are not bad with interesting enemies throughout, though they all feel a bit samey by the end. What stands out are the excellent boss fights, always based around the new skill you've just learned. It's fantastic game design, particularly back from the early 90s and it all being still relatively new at the time. For a remake, they missed the mark in some places. They really could have done with sanding off some of the rougher edges from the original titles. Telling you every single fucking time what a power-up is when you already bloody know what it is beyond frustrating. Directional movement is very blocky and could be a lot smoother with better animations. Fast travel, however, is great and a must for modern titles. Good to see that some of these and other features have been fixed in Echoes of Wisdom. Overall, it's fun to explore and play. Upon reveal, the visuals were quite contentious to start with. Zelda has had a strong history with pixel art. You just have to look at Minish Cap for some of the best ever made. As this game had already had multiple versions, with the DX looking great in colour, there was a lot to live up to. Initially, I wasn't too impressed. The toy-like plasticine figures actually looked rather poor and way too shiny. However, with time it has grown on me, in particular when you compare it to sort of Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which look absolutely atrocious. Link, in particular, is very cute. The island looks great and has a wonderful adaptation to the widescreen from the original 4x3. It absolutely pops with colour and each region is very distinct. Whether it's the swelling fog in the forest or the waves lapping on the beach, the FX are actually excellent. Weirdly, there is slowdown in some locations, which is very strange for a top-down first-party game, and it was never patched out. Doesn't make the game unplayable, but it's pretty noticeable. The real star of the show is the music. That theme song, how could you ever get bored of it? In my opinion, it's one of the finest musical pieces ever written, and now it's orchestrated. Look, it might start to grate for some people as it plays out so often in the main world, but I just cannot get enough of it. Even 15 hours in, I still get excited hearing it. Even the songs in the town and the boss fights are classics. For someone that came to the Zelda series very late and completely out of order, I have the zeal of a convert. For me, the best thing about the series is the incredible music. As expected for a Nintendo first-party game, the general sounds are really good. The smashing of metal in combat, the swoosh of cutting grass, and the chain chomp lurching out at you all sound great. The hook here is digging into this vibrant world, trying to unlock more areas and items. You start out with nothing in a strange place, and just see where it takes you. Being a remake, a lot of people will know what to expect from it, but as it's been so many years, there's still a freshness there. Even a linear pattern, it can still lead to some different outcomes. I still never found the bloody boomerang, forcing me to adapt. There's a lot to fight and trade here, and it's always a delight to see what the new boss fight is. Even the characters are cool. Add in the mystery of what Link is doing here, which I won't spoil at all, it all adds up to a great little game. For those that felt Breath of the Wild was too big a departure from the odd formula, a lack of traditional dungeons, weapon degradation, then Link's Awakening is the classic option on Switch. Full of dungeons and old school boss fights, plus that more linear progression. Even comparing to Echoes of Wisdom with its emphasis on problem solving and physics using echoes, rather than the straight combat you get here. Link's Awakening keeps all those strands from the 1986 original game. I'm really glad it got made. On release it was pretty difficult to play the original, so this is a great option and on the big screen too. And hey, if you're annoyed at the visuals, just play the original DX version on the NSO. Overall, it really bodes well and allows for multiple Zelda games without taking 7 years like the big 3D titles. I am very open for more handheld remakes, though maybe just port Minish Cap and make it HD 2D, please? The game launched complete and there's no DLC as such. Nintendo have been very good in recent years for adding new content to older remakes like Bowser's Fury, but here there was no need for additional padding. There are a bunch of side quests to delve into, but the length for the main stuff feels about right. Nice island world to explore and it fits rather nicely. It did include a dungeon maker, but it's very sparse. There's little individual creativity, unlike, say, Mario Maker. I messed around with it for about 10 minutes, but being stuck with limited rooms and just about how you place them gets stale very quickly. Even sharing these is a pain, so there's little point. The main game is more than enough though. Looking back, there's a wealth of experience from Grozzo, who have worked on multiple Zelda games such as Ocarina of Time 3D and Majora's Mask 3D remakes, as well as some expansions for Final Fantasy XI. The quality of work really shines through for Link's Awakening. It demonstrates an incredible formula from Nintendo. Ask a studio to remake a classic, get a feel for it in the world, then use the engine, knowledge and experience to make a brand new title such as Echoes of Wisdom. I really like that game, and it shows what can be done with trusting a studio and giving them time and guidance. They are not owned by Nintendo, but another example of a partnership with an external studio to aid or create first-party development. It's the kind of studio you'd expect them to pick up eventually, and I fully expect another Zelda title in a few years from them regardless. Link's Awakening reviewed really well and was nominated for Best Art Direction and Best Action Adventure Game at the Game Awards, and Nintendo Game of the Year at the Golden Joysticks in 2019. For 2019, this was a very solid remake, and you don't expect these to win above brand new titles. Though in hindsight, I think they could have gone further, and I think the bar is even higher now. Remakes are an important tentpole for most studios, and it'd be interesting to see which classic top-down Zelda gets the remake treatment next. For me, this is the epitome of what makes a handheld game so fucking good. A little world of your own to explore in, dip in and out to discover new things, and just be generally delightful. It doesn't have the freedom or scope of Breath of the Wild, but with a length of about 14 hours, it doesn't outstay its welcome. Look, I pretty much play every game handheld, so I might be a tad biased, but it gives me such 90s Game Boy vibes. I really like it. I love the music. Did I say? I want it all added to the Nintendo Music app ASAP. Depending on your nostalgia and willingness to play old games, and the original is more than adequate to play now, particularly if you already have NSO. The alternative is Echoes of Wisdom, where you actually play as Zelda for the very first time, but it's still a big departure of what a top-down Zelda game is. Link's Awakening is really the only way to play classic Zelda with a modern glow. Now, I just need to go find that boomerang.